Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick. Thank you for joining me in another episode of Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. Today I'm talking about the works that inspire me, and if you can't tell by the background, there's quite a few of them. When I'm running up a hill and I see a cyclist or another runner ahead of me, I tend to pick up my pace to try and pass them. Regardless of whether this is at the beginning, middle, or end of a run, or how badly I'm throwing the running plan to do so, I'm inspired by the people around me. Sometimes it's a two-way street and they will pick up their own pace to try and match me. On certain steep hills, some cyclists have cheered for me as I pass them, and I've likewise done the same when they overtake me on the downhill. When setting these spontaneous challenges to run faster, I am adjusting my own habits as a means of self-improvement. Within a race, you'll be passed constantly, and you'll be passing others. Writing, like running, is less about what others are doing and more about battling against yourself. The greatest way for me to do that is to be inspired. Inspiration is all around us. When I go to concerts and get immersed in those performances, I can't help but leave with 3 writing ideas that I want to develop. These may be specific lines of dialogue, descriptions of one of the 5 senses I want to use to flush out a scene, or a general theme to weave into the manuscript. Watching and hearing my friends' dedication take form in their performances renews my own writing resolve. Here are my 5 thoughts to be inspired rather than subdued by the works of others. Number 1, don't measure yourself against anyone else's accomplishments. I will never come close to running as fast as Usain Bolt, or honestly, your better than average high school athlete. I do apologize if I butcher the name, but at the end of 2019, Eliud Kipchoge ran a marathon that is 26.2 miles in less than 2 hours. It's mind-blowing. Disregarding any of the opinions and controversies and the fact that it wasn't an official marathon race, the man still ran a full marathon distance at an average pace of about 4.5 minutes per mile. Let those numbers sink in for just 1 second. At my absolute peak, I was able to run 1 mile in the lower 5s. That was a single mile, and I was in no shape to run afterwards. I think I might have thrown up too. As for my writing, you've heard it here, but I will never create a fantastic world like Raymond Feist, or the genuine and heartfelt small towns of Stephen King. Measuring my successes against their accomplishments only succeeds in demoralizing myself. Thus, my personal goals are more aligned with finishing a novel that I'm happy with, as opposed to writing a best-selling masterpiece. Number 2, make challenging comparisons healthy. Yeah, this is a contradiction to number 1. Comparing progress as a means of pushing both parties forward is a lot different than whipping your dicks out and measuring them. Friendly comparison helps both parties improve. The problem can be when one side thinks they're inspiring when they're actually causing anxiety or jealousy. Marking your own progress against another person can easily devolve into pettiness. Watching someone with natural talent surpass you can be upsetting when you've been struggling for years. That is the unhealthy way of thinking about it. Instead, you get to watch and support that person as they far exceed their expectations. To me, that is a wonderful feeling every time I've experienced it. Number 3, take what you want and make it your own. I have a couple saved pages of beautiful writing by authors I admire. Among them, Terry Pratchett is at the top, and I'm going to read a small excerpt from The Last Continent. It was not a storm, it was a battle. Mere gales, a few hundred miles long, fought amongst themselves within the cloud wall. Lightning forked from thunderhead to thunderhead. Rain fell and flashed into steam 1/2 mile from the ground. The air glowed. And skipping ahead to later on, The sea steamed and crackling balls of lightning zipped across its surface like drops of water on a hot plate. Damn, that was more than powerful writing. That was a crescendo. Every word adds to the simple phrase that boils down to "it rained." Even out of context, the words evoke moving and concrete imagery. I mean, if you don't have a reaction from that text, then you might need to check yourself for a pulse. Whether that reaction is to worry over the characters experiencing that cataclysmic storm, or the sheer magnitude of its scale, it should be considerable. It reminded me of the last time I was caught in a torrential downpour that seemed unending. Terry Pratchett pinpointed an exact moment and conveyed it in a universal way that gave it life and meaning. I could never write something like that, but reading it helps expand the way in which I set a scene. Ursula Le Guin's archipelago in the Wizard of Earthsea series instilled in me a strong desire to drop everything and take up sailing. I never did, but that desire is still there to this day. She made each island, no matter how much or little time the plot lingered there, feel like its own unique character. Number 4, building on the last idea, leave the rest. Every cliche began as a new idea. They often simplify the problem of conveying your ideas in a way that is universally understood. They are also considered to be lazy writing. Do your best to avoid them like the plague. Although every rule has its exceptions, the best way to apply cliches is through satire, or by using them for misdirection. There are plenty of books that plodded along, setting their own expectations and patterns. Then at a certain point, everything you think you know and believe gets thrown out. Dresden Files is the first book that comes to my mind that did this masterfully. By setting up several cliches and story beats before taking a sharp turn, the entire series expanded exponentially for the better. I was one of many readers who were caught off guard and tricked by something truly unexpected, and it felt great. I like how the series balked expectations and led to more interesting storytelling rather than replaying the same plots with a shiny new coat. That right there is a feat I aspire to perform. And number 5, listen to those earworms. Storytelling can be musical. Case in point, call me Ralcoa if you will, and I'll explain your special skill. An evil lies, old man's eyes, nothing left to feed the flies. Evil lurking, evil laying, washed up within the tide. Deliver to letter, to sooner to better, to later to letter, to matter I get her. Those 3 excerpts are from stories I haven't read since I was a child. And that's multiple decades ago. They still are stuck in there. For reference, they were John Peel's Diadem, Elizabeth Winthrop's The Battle for the Castle, and Beverly Cleary's Dear Mr. Henshaw. Again, I haven't read those books in multiple decades. Now, I may not be able to tell you what else happens in those books, but those single pieces have stuck with me. I may have butchered the exact quotes, but cut me some slack. It's been at least a decade, if not 2, since I read those stories. But damn if after all those years, those lines continue to haunt and inspire me, trickling their own way into the stories I create. For those who missed it, the references I made in this video will be included in the description, and I strongly encourage you to read all of them. Inspiration doesn't only have to be positive. I've experienced things which give me a twinge in the back of my neck, and ultimately I will write to offset those emotions. I prefer to end on a positive note, so enter Lord of the Rings. Regardless how you feel about the novels or movies, they are objectively groundbreaking pieces of work that set the standard for their industries. Both the novels and movies contain enough meaningful quotes and themes for me to dedicate every single subsequent video to, and still have more to talk about. The internet is filled with Lord of the Rings memes to capture these earworms, and I personally know a few artists who were inspired to make their own works based on these stories. Given the depth and breadth of the source material, It is no surprise that the movies put in painstaking care into each scene. That's going down an entirely different tangent, though. Those are my 5 strategies to get the most out of inspirational works without being bogged down by them. Thank you for joining me in another episode of my series. Let me know what authors or artists inspire you. Post in the comments below what you use to inspire your best work, be it rereading your favorite novel or listening to that one song to clear your head after a rough day. I'm Ben Pick. Running to Write comes out every Monday night. Please, please share, like, and subscribe. See you next time. Until then, find your inspiration to keep improving your writing.